Hmm. Well, the first time I ever heard the word octavist was on YouTube. Someone had left a comment on one of my videos, and they called me an octavist, and I had never heard that word before. That was about 7 years ago. I'm not quite sure, but I know it was within the last decade. My curious mind went to racing, and I started looking that word up. And at the time, I couldn't really find anything on that word. It was like it didn't even exist on Google. So I responded back to this person who called me that on YouTube, and he sent me a link to this Facebook group called Octavism, Basstronomy, and Chorale. And man, these guys were like an encyclopedia of the bass voice. They're pretty amazing guys. I would definitely recommend anyone who's into deep voices to go check them out. Well, thank you. Octavism.com. Go check them out. One of the most memorable experiences my voice gave me was probably back when I was 14 or so. Um, my father has a real deep voice. Not as deep as mine now, but back then he had like probably one of the deepest voices I ever heard. And I always wanted to have a voice like his. So my voice had recently dropped in puberty when I was 12, 13 years old. So it sounded similar to this at that age, if you can imagine that, but it didn't have the fullness and the color and the roundness and the resonance that my voice has today. But the deepness was there back then, if you can understand that. So I had a really deep voice as a kid. And so I remember there were times when, this was before cell phones and all that. We had one house phone that was on the dining room wall, and anybody, you know, anybody could answer it. So I remember so many times when my dad's friends would call. They would call, and when I answered the phone, they would just start the conversation as if they were talking to my dad. And I would have to stop them and say, "Oh, you want my dad? Hold on, I'll go get him." And that was pretty funny. That was pretty memorable for a 14, 15-year-old kid. So that would have to be at the top of my list on that one. I first met the Doom series way back in its early years, in the early to mid '90s. I was 20 something. My siblings and I got an Atari 1600 back when we were kids. From there, my love of video games began, and it followed me up into my 30s. Doom was one of those games that it was purely fantasy. It was a shooter, and with most shooters, you're just running around trying to survive, and at the same time, you're hunting down monsters. So I've known about the series pretty much from its beginning, and that's what made it really special when Mick contacted me to be a part of this one. And so now I'm a part of the Doom legacy, and I think that's pretty cool. I haven't heard the whole soundtrack, but I'm not sure if Mick had me mixed in with the choir. I knew of the choir. He told me about the choir and how he was meeting them in Texas. Yeah, I think we actually spoke on the phone one time when he was out there in Texas with the choir, but I was not with the choir. I was specifically a solo project with Mick, but I think it was two or three variations of solo pieces that I did. And I also did some drawn out notes, oohs and ahs, ooh, like that, at different keys. different notes, specific notes that he wanted. And how Mick cut those up, I have no idea. And that's how that happened. That was pretty much it. Thank you, I appreciate that. Well, this was recorded in my home studio. I work from home as a professional voice actor. That is my full-time profession for the past 5 years now. Yeah. And that's where I did all the pieces that you hear me do in this game. When Mick originally approached me about this, he sent me the lyrics and also the different scales that he wanted me to ooh, like I talked about earlier. And I asked him what language it was because I had no idea what I was reading. And he kind of gave me some reference as far as the pronunciation, but really left it kind of up to me, which added to, I guess, the authenticity of it being a alien form of speech, which he called it. It was a made up language for this game. So that's what I went with. Um, a lot of people have been asking, what does that mean? What does that mean? If it means anything, I don't know what it means. I was told it was a made up language for the game and, have some fun with it, do your thing kind of thing. He gave me a lot of leeway. He had his specific boundaries, but at the same time, he gave me some creative freedom, if you understand that, if that makes sense. Um, he knew exactly what he wanted, but he did give me some leeway to put me in there, so that was pretty cool too. So I think it worked out. The particular song that everyone seems to know me from now in the game, um, at the time I recorded them, I didn't know where or how they were going to be used in the game. Uh, Mick did not divulge any of that information to me. Uh, if he knew how he was going to use it, I had no idea. I didn't find out until everybody else found out playing the game. Um, I think it's pretty awesome that he plucked that out to be a solo piece with no monsters or shooting or anything like that in that cathedral. I think that was just a beautiful presentation in general. Just, the game design, the vocal, it all culminated in just a beautiful few moments in the game. And that's been expressed by pretty much everybody that's reached out to me, that they just had to just stop and just enjoy it. And that's pretty cool. It kind of reminded me of when I used to play Gran Turismo. Sometimes I would turn the game on just to, simulate driving, not trying to win a race or anything, but just to simulate driving and listen to that gorgeous music that they had in the soundtrack. It just, sometimes I would do that just to hear the music. So it's pretty awesome that I'll be remembered, at least in a small bit, for something similar to that, where this particular calm, quiet, safe part of the game is set in this cathedral-like setting, um, and it's kind of ethereal, with that piece that I'm singing uh, being presented there. I think that's really, to me, that was a real touch of class. I had no idea he was going to do that. He didn't tell me that. Um, that really blew me away when I learned that. So that was pretty awesome. And and I think a lot of people, based on the messages that I've been getting, um, feel the same way. But that was Mick's vision. He had that in his head, I'm sure, and made it work. So yeah. I'm glad to be that guy. Okay, this is a fair question. Um, how can I express my belief in God and sing in in this game that's I guess supposedly evil, demonic or whatever? That's an easy answer for me. First of all, my belief is one thing. My job is another. I was hired and paid to sing in a video game. It didn't take me out of my belief in God. It was strictly a business transaction and using my talents and gifts and abilities to carry out that transaction. But my beliefs are one thing, and then my job is another. Now, I will say this, if there were any cursing or sexually explicit innuendo or anything like that, I would have declined this gig. Um, I would have first asked Mick if we could work around it, if we could rewrite it, if we could do whatever. And if that wasn't possible, then it wouldn't have been my voice that you heard on this piece. But because it was presented to me as a made up language for the video game, and I am a singer, I sang the parts, and that was it. As a voice actor, I have turned down a lot of work because of my beliefs. And that's it. Well, thank you for inviting me for this interview. Um, all you guys out there who loved hearing me in the game, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support that's been coming my way ever since the release. I, what more can I say? I thank you. I appreciate you, and hopefully you'll hear me in another game somewhere down the line, either singing or speaking. So let's hope for that. All right, you guys take care. Bye.